Moving on with our real number section, we're going to do multiplication next. And in this section we'll do multiplication and division because they're basically the same rules. The thing you need to remember with multiplication and division, I'll write it again when we get to division, are the rules are if you have the same sign, you're going to have a positive answer. My pen can't keep up. If you have opposite signs, you're going to have a negative answer. So let's look at these. 3 times 5. Well, it's a positive 3 times positive 5. That gives me positive 15. Don't make them harder than they are. A 3 times a negative 5. Opposite signs, so that gives me negative 15. So here are the rules. Product of two numbers with the same sign are positive. Product of different signs are negative. And I didn't say this, but the product of any number and 0 is always 0. So when you're doing these and you have a long line of them, I just take them 2 at a time. Negative 2 times negative 4 is going to give me positive 8. Negative times a negative is a positive. Negative 8 times a positive 8 times a negative 1 gives me negative 8 because they're opposite signs. Here I've got negative 1 times negative 5. That gives me positive 5. I'm going to take the next one. 5 times a negative 2, that's going to give me 10, and it's negative because they're opposite signs. 10 times a negative 3, they're the same sign. That gives me positive 30. So here's some questions for you. The product of an odd number of negative factors. If you have an odd number of negatives, you're going to stay negative. Like A up here above it. You had negative 2, negative 4, negative 1. See, that came out to be negative 8. If you have an even number of negative factors, you're going to end up positive because the negatives end up canceling out. Here I had an even number. I had 4 numbers. That's what they're talking about, an even number. 4 numbers ended up with a positive answer when they were all negative. The product of any number and 0, always going to be 0. Alright, let's continue on. You've got negative 1 times negative 2. That equals a positive 2. 2 times 3 gives me 6. 6 times a negative 5 gives me 30. It's going to be negative because it's opposite signs. Now let's talk about exponents. Let's throw some exponents in here because remember, exponents that you're just multiplying over and over again. That's what we do when we do exponents. So if I have negative 3, you're just going to have to be very careful when we put negatives in with these exponents. If you've got a negative inside of parentheses with an exponent outside, you've got to be sure and carry that negative when you write your number over and over again. This first one is an excellent example. If I've got negative 3 squared, that means I've got negative 3 times another negative 3. That gives me a positive 9 because negative times negative is positive. Now, this next one is totally different because the negative is not in parentheses. What that negative is saying is the opposite of. When we talked about opposites before, opposites are the counter sign. If you're positive, you're negative for an opposite. If you're negative, you're positive for an opposite. So what this is saying is you're taking the opposite of 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. The opposite of 9 is negative 9. You need to be careful. Because what you will do, and what I've seen a lot of students do, is just put these in their calculator. Well, if you put negative 3 squared in your calculator, you're going to get a negative 9. Because the calculator is not recognizing parentheses at all. If you put it in parentheses and then square it, you'll get your positive 9 out. So you've got to be careful. Don't trust the calculator. It's not the end all and be all. Use some common sense. Y'all all have that common sense superpower. Alright, negative 1/4 cubed. So this time I'm taking it times 3. Again, times itself 3 times. Again, remember, if we have a negative number and we're going to do it an odd number of times, I should end up with a negative result. So this is going to be negative 1/4 times negative 1/4 times a third negative 1/4. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Positive 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So that took care of the negative on top. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Totally different from the next one, because the next one does not have parentheses with that negative. So I do not take the negative with me when I'm working this out. This is going to be the opposite of 0.2 times 0.2 times 0.2. Well, when I multiply those 0.2s, I get a 0.008. It's going to be negative because the negative is going to carry with that answer. So just be really careful. You can see they did this one. Negative 4 squared, no parentheses, end up with a negative 16. Negative 5 squared with parentheses. Negative 5 times negative 5 equals positive 25. Alright, so let's practice some fractions. Oh, I'm sorry, these are going to be we're going to do multiplication at the top, and then we're going to go into division. Alright, so it's nice with multiplication and division. I don't have to worry about an LCD, remember. So we could do some cross canceling. Those rules still apply, even though there's positives and negatives here. Make your numbers easier. So I'm going to look at this one. I can see I've got 5s in the diagonal, so I'm going to divide those out. I've got 3s in the diagonal. I'm going to divide those out. So I have a negative 1 times a negative 1, positive 1. Let's do this one. Again, 4s cancel out, 1s cancel out, then have 1s, negative times a negative, positive 1. So when you multiply reciprocals of the same sign, you end up with 1s. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2 because you flip it over. The reciprocal of negative 1/8 is negative 8/1. They're showing you reciprocals because we're about to roll into division, and remember, you've got to know how to do reciprocals to do division. Alright, two non-zero real numbers are reciprocals if their product is equal to 1. If A and B are non-zero real numbers, then the reciprocal of A over B is B over A. Alright, so here's division. Again, we're doing the same rules that we did with multiplication. If you have the same sign, we're going to have a positive answer. If we have different signs, we're going to have a negative answer. The quotient of 0 in any non-zero number. So that means if 0 is on top, that equals 0. The quotient of any real number in 0 is undefined. So if you have 0 on the bottom, undefined. Remember, that's a no-no to divide by 0. You can't have 0 on top, though. Numerator is okay. So let's do some division. Alright, sometimes they'll just give you straight division symbol. Sometimes they'll write it as a fraction. It means the same thing. Negative 36 divided by negative 3, I know it's going to be positive. 36 divided by 3 is 12. Negative 100 divided by 4, I know that's going to be negative because I have one of each. And then 100 divided by 4 is 25, so negative 25. 14 divided by negative 2.8, I know that it's going to be negative because I have a positive divided by a negative, and that turns out to be 5 when you do the division, and it's going to be negative because I have one of each. Negative 11 divided by negative 3, the only thing I can really do with that one is change it to 11/3, because in algebra we're going to still leave it as an improper fraction, but you can cancel out those negatives and make it positive. 0 in the numerator is okay, so 0 divided by negative 7 is 0, but negative 7 divided by 0, 0 coming second, not okay. That one would be undefined. Alright, let's do some more division. Negative 18 divided by negative 12. So we could write that. The best thing we can do is do it like this. And then the two negatives are going to cancel each other out. So I can reduce this by 6's. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 6 goes into 12 2 times. So I could reduce it to 3/2, and it's positive. What am I doing? Y'all are letting me... No, that's right. Okay, the next one we're going to do the flipping. So I'm going to have negative 3/10. And remember, with division of fractions, we're going to keep, change, flip. So we keep the first fraction, we change the division to multiplication, we flip the second fraction. So I'm going to do some cross canceling. 3 goes into itself one time, 3 goes into 6 2 times. For 10 and 25, 5 goes into both of them. 5 goes into 10 twice, 5 goes into 25 5 times. Now let's multiply straight across. I have a negative times a positive, so I know my answer is going to be negative. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 2 is 4. We can leave it just like that. So here's a little bit of a review. The quotient of two non-zero numbers with the same sign is going to be positive. The quotient of two non-zero numbers with different signs is going to be negative. If you have 0 divided by a non-zero number, the answer is 0. But if you have the non-zero number coming first or in the numerator, zeros on the denominator are coming second, and divide. One more little bit of practice. Negative 10 over 27 divided by 5 over 18. We can't do enough fractions. So negative 10 over 27, keep, change, flip. And then let's do some cross canceling. 5 goes into itself one time, 5 goes into 10 twice. For 18 and 27, 9 goes into both of those. 2 times and 3 times. So negative 2 times 2 would be negative 4 over 3 times 1 is 3. Let's try this first order of operations, and then I think we'll be good with division. 24 minus 24 divided by negative 3 times 2. So remember, we need to save the subtraction for last. We need to do this, we come to a division first, so 24 minus. 24 divided by negative 3 is going to be, 3 goes into 24 8 times, and it's going to be negative 24 divided by negative 3, so that's going to turn it into a positive 8 times the negative 2. So I still have to worry about this negative 2 and the positive 8 because that's multiplication. Can't do anything with 24 yet. 8 times a negative 2 gives me negative 16. Opposite signs, you have to have a negative number. Now 24 minus 16 is going to give me 8, and it's going to be positive because 24 is larger. We could have done it like this, 24 plus negative 16. That's how we were doing it in the last section. To subtract them, 24 minus 16 is 8. It's positive because 24 is larger. Alright, that is multiplication and division of real numbers. Have a great day.